Welcome back to Claris Engage. I'm Rosemary Teege, Head of Community for Claris, and one of your co-hosts today. Before we get started, I want to extend a warm thank you to everybody from the community and our partners and customers who have contributed their knowledge and expertise and experience with the Claris platform to this conference, both in the panels and under the hood sessions live this week, and also in all the on-demand content that will be coming out over the next several weeks. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to Claris Connect Under the Hood, the impact of workflow automation, led by Lou de la Parra from the Claris engineering team. But before we get started, we want you to have the best experience today. As you'll see in chat, we've put the WebEx support information and the international call-in numbers so that if you have any problems with your audio, you can dial in using those numbers. It's exciting that our sessions have reached capacity, but some of you may not see video of all the speakers. To cut down on the bandwidth, you can try switching from computer audio to dialing in using those phone numbers. And we appreciate your patience as we continue to work with WebEx on our first virtual conference. For best performance and to minimize distractions for our presenters and panelists, we have disabled two-way chat in this session. But we know you're going to have a lot of questions for our speakers, especially in this Under the Hood session. So feel free to drop questions using the Q&A panel on the right side of your screen. You can type your question in the box on the lower right. You can show and hide the QA panel by clicking on the question mark bubble in the bottom of the screen. And please, again, to minimize distraction to our presenters, you can address your questions to me, and I will ask them of our speakers at the end of the session. Last thing, you can control when we switch to Q&A how you see the speakers by clicking on the little square icon in the upper right, and that will let you toggle between grid view, a single speaker view, and a floating palette while slides are being presented. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Claris Connect Under the Hood, and Ronnie Rios will lead us off. Ronnie, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosemary, and thank all of you for joining us here today. I am super excited to be here. I mean, this is Engage, right? This is our Super Bowl, and I could not be happier to be here today, right now, as part of the Claris Connect team. And as Rosemary mentioned, we have two special guests here today, Guy and Wim, and they will share with us some amazing things that they're doing with Claris Connect. And Lou is going to share with us some of the features that we've already launched and some of the things that we're still cooking up here in the lab. But before that, I'd like to take a few minutes to share a few things myself. As many of you know, Claris, we've long been about helping problem solvers like you to create the apps that make your businesses better, regardless of development skills. And we realized a while back that when your apps are connected, you save time, you reduce, and even sometimes eliminate errors altogether. And that's why we brought Connect into the Claris family. Claris Connect is a cloud-based integration platform that allows you to automate entire workflows by connecting all of your apps, both off-the-shelf apps and even custom apps as well. Now, of course, if we're going to bring a new product into the Claris, we're going to do it the Claris way. So we had to make sure that it was as easy and simple as possible so that anybody could create powerful integrations and automated workflows. So from the very launch, it was packed full with the best overall set of features and tools that this category has. Things like approvals and loops, conditional logic, error capture, versioning, and much more. Now, of course, we haven't stayed still. In a few minutes, you're going to hear more about some of the great things that we've been working on. But one of the main directives here at Claris for us is to work as closely as possible with you, the community. And several of the changes that we've already made into the platform that we're currently working on have come directly from your feedback. One such change was licensing and pricing. With your input and collaboration, we've actually introduced new plans and updated the feature set, making it much more flexible and easier for anyone to add Claris to their workflows. Now, we've also made changes into multiple connectors. We've made some changes to several aspects of the UI, all of which make a better product today than it was before. And again, we could not have done this without your feedback. The feedback from the most engaging and passionate developer community anywhere. So from all of us at Claris, and especially the Claris Connect team, thank you. And please continue providing your invaluable feedback. Now, while I was preparing for this session, I realized that some of you may have never seen Claris Connect before. So what do you say if I quickly show you very quickly how to use Claris Connect to build an entire automation from start to finish? I know it's a bit of a challenge to do in a few minutes, but here's a scenario. Here's what we're going to do. We've set up a customer registration form in Typeform, and which is going to capture customers' basic information, things like first name, last name, email, and it asks whether or not the customer wants to join our mailing list. Now, when a customer submits the registration form, we will conditionally add them to a MailChimp mailing list that we've had set up, and we'll add them in if they've opted in. We'll add them into our mailing list if they have opted in by answering yes to the question that we have in our form. Sounds good? All right, let's build it. So I'm going to start off by creating a new flow here inside of my project. I give it a name. Doesn't matter really what we give it, as long as it's a meaningful name. Now we're going to listen for an event, and this event is going to be the new form, right? The new request form coming in from Typeform. I'm going to use my existing account. Now we got to choose which form do I want to listen for. I've got already this form set up. I'm going to choose that. Now Claris Connect is waiting for me to submit a sample request. So I'm going to go over here to the form and fill it out just as if I were a customer. And I'll even answer yes to the question to join the mailing list. Great. So now when I go back to Claris Connect, we see that the connection is complete, which is great. So now let's add the new action. We want to add this person into our MailChimp mailing list. So I'll choose here to subscribe to a new list. And I'll use my existing account right here. Now, I need to choose which list do I want to subscribe these customers to. I already have a list here. And we need at least the email address. Now, I want to take the email address that came from that form. So I can click over here and see all of the information that came in from that sample request that we did. And you can see it helps you figure out which element do I want to include here, which is the email, which is great. Now for the next one, we'll do the same thing, but I don't even have to scroll. I can actually search directly for it because I know the sample data. It helps me find the exact element I want. I'll do the same thing here for the last name. There we go. I'm done. I didn't even have to read the documentation. Great. I'll just enable it and we're done. Oh wait, actually I forgot to add the if here. We had a condition, so let's do that now. No worries. We wanted to ask for that last question. So I'm gonna go ahead and scroll all the way down, look for the answer. Here we go. And the criteria is whether or not it's true. So I'm going to choose here, true for the criteria, and I'll save the changes. And to make sure that this last step only occurs when the if is true, I'm just going to drag it here to the right and embed it inside the if. There, we're done. As easy as that, we've actually done from start to finish an entire automation. Now, that was just a brief example of how you can automate an everyday business task, in just a few minutes using Claris Connect. And sure, that was a simple example, but we thought we'd like to see a real-world example that's much more complex. So that's why we invite Guy Halligan. He's the lead digital developer at Harvey Water Softeners in the UK. Guy's going to share with you how they are leveraging Claris Connect on their journey to digital transformation. So with that, Guy, the digital stage is yours.
Thanks very much, Ronnie, and hello everyone. Yeah, so my name is Guy Halligan. I work for Harvey Water Softeners Limited. I've done a few Devcons before, but today we're going to talk about how we've integrated. So a little bit about me: 20 years in-house, long time. Done 3 Devcons, and I'm a painted IoT tinkerer. So, but enough about that. Anyway, so one of the key things we use Connect for is to rationalize our website, lead management. So this is a form in our legacy website, and here is the same form in our new website. 2 different platforms, 2 different form handlers. So a bit of a pain to handle from both. So with the old way, we used to do it using XML custom web publishing with a parameterized URL, which was fairly fiddly to set up and had to be spot on, otherwise it wouldn't work. It was could be a bit of a problem sometimes. We had to do lots of docs for our devs from the different web providers to make sure they got it right, and so we didn't miss leads, more importantly. So we decided to junk that with our new website. Oh, and yes, of course, with XML, it's quite verbose, so you do get a lot of data coming back from the response, which you might not necessarily want. So for the new site, we've gone to Claris Connect. So all we'd have to do now is just dump a simple JSON object to Claris Connect, and we'll sort it out. And the same for our social media requests coming in. So all we really do is just refactor the workflow. So the form sends a link to Connect, and then that dumps straight into our web leads table. We can add a bit of logic flow within Connect, as you've just seen with Ronnie, and we can execute custom scripts on our FileMaker premise server as well, without connecting it to the outside world. So we can extract elements coming in from the form, and then we remap that to our custom JSON object, which then we send to our premise server, which does the notifications and the back-end integration. So it's a really seamless, easy, rock-solid way. And the nice thing about it is that we can customize the response, so no data leaks out. So if we're giving any other web developer access, we what they see. Now, the best thing I think we've done is mobile device management, fully automatic with Claris Connect, which is brilliant. So a little bit of history. Last year I did a talk about on MDMs and how we managed to do it internally for no money by using our own little server, which was great. So we had 300 devices out in the field, all very happily running, until, unfortunately, our little internal OS6 server died and we had no MDM server. So 300 devices orphaned. So we switched to a simple MDM, which has an API, and that allowed us to do some clever stuff. So simple MDM, for those who don't know, is like a fully functional MDM system, really powerful, but extremely easy to integrate, which is one of the reasons we chose it. And of course, it's got the API keys and all important webhooks to let us work with Connect. So this is how it works. Oh, and one other thing, this allowed us to build native support for an MDM straight within FileMaker itself, which is pretty cool. So how does it work? Well, simple MDM works with Claris Connect and FileMaker 19 to do all the work for me. So when the device registers with simple MDM, that sends a webhook to Claris Connect, and from that payload we can extract the serial number, which we then query our FileMaker 19 server to work out which person has that device and how to put them in the right group. That then sends a reply back to simple MDM, and the device will automatically start enrolling. All the right apps come down for that user, everything else with profiles, security restrictions, you name it, we can do it. And the nice thing about it, we can also send custom attributes as well to set up custom fields in there, so we can even set up their whole email for them. So it's a completely automated process. I don't have to do anything. All they have to do is enroll their iPad. And that's the great thing about Connect and FileMaker. It does all the complicated, boring stuff so we can focus on the features. And that's pretty much it. Hope you liked it. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Guy. That was truly awesome. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce you to Lou de la Parra, who will share with you some exciting technical details on Claris Connect, along with some of the things we're currently working on. With that, welcome, Lou.
Thank you, Guy and Ronnie. And Guy, I'll speak for the Claris organization to say that seeing what you folks come up with is what drives us forward. Hello, everyone. My name is Lou de la Parra, and I'm incredibly proud to be delivering Connect's first Under the Hood session. In this session, we'll get to take a look at some of the new connectors we've added to the platform. We'll dive into some of the amazing features we've added since our launch, and peer just over the horizon to see powerful new features we currently have in development. Finally, because this is an under the hood session, we'll roll up our sleeves so we can take an in-depth look at the Connect product's architecture. Sound good? All right. I'm so proud to say that Connect launched in March. I want to take a moment to congratulate the teams of hardworking individuals across the organization that made this possible. I also want to thank you, the community. The response has been overwhelmingly positive, and the enthusiasm we felt has radiated across the company. At launch, Connect had some amazing connectors, but we're on a mission. That mission is to empower problem solvers in ways previously thought to be impossible. We're dedicated to providing new and unique possibilities realized through Connect. One of the ways for us to do that is to introduce new and exciting connectors. We want to connect everything. At launch, we had connectors like Zendesk and MailChimp. These connectors enabled rich CRM and marketing capabilities. We also offered Twilio and PubNub, which combined to enable excellent scalable messaging services. We had Slack and Pipedrive, which empower businesses to keep company communication and information in sync. We also offered Box and FormStack, which makes it incredibly easy to create and share documents. We provided the MySQL connector, which allows you to connect to non-FileMaker databases, and added one of my favorites, Calendly, which make it simple and straightforward to align schedules and increase collaboration. Finally, Typeform enabled creating and sharing forms, and Clearbit allowed companies to identify prospects and personalize interactions. Connect allows you to integrate all of these services and more in a simple, straightforward way. We haven't been idle since launch. I'm proud to say we've added some additional connectors to the platform. With the HubSpot connector, you can find, create, and update CRM contacts. With the Google Calendar connector, we enable the creation, rescheduling, searching for, or removing calendar events. The Google Sheet connector provides the ability to create a spreadsheet or update a row in an existing sheet. And finally, the Google Drive connector offers the ability to upload files, create folders, download files, and even more. We also added the UPS connector. With that connector, you can get shipping rates, track a package, or even schedule a delivery. We're adding MS Teams, which provides the ability to automate the creation of channels or send important information to groups of individuals. We also are adding the MS SharePoint connector. This will allow you to create, upload, and search for files with ease. Finally, an awesome connector we're adding is Smartsheet. This makes it easy and simple to create digital forms and spreadsheets and populate those sheets with your important data. And would you look at that? I'm going to need another row. With MonkeyLearn, you can leverage some amazingly powerful machine learning capabilities. SurveyMonkey allows you to design and host powerful forms and trigger flows when those forms are submitted. The Zoom connector enables you to automatically generate a web conference link. And finally, Xero offers flow triggers and actions which enable powerful accounting capabilities. Connectors are a focal point of the platform. They enable users to create flows that solve complex business problems and intelligently automate their business logic in new and empowering ways. Connect offers more than the ability to stitch together these services into a flow-based automation tool. We've also added some significant new features. The first of those features is called the repeat step. We added this feature shortly after launch. The repeat step allows you to dispatch actions for each of the items found in a list. The repeat step allows Connect to efficiently work with sequential data. The repeat step supports up to 1,500 iterations per step, and this makes it capable of iterating through even the largest of payloads. The repeat step also supports the flow control utilities. This means you can trigger additional flows unique to each item found in a list, or even catch errors and stop the flow if the data doesn't match your expectations. To showcase the power of the repeat step, I have a flow designed to create a Smartsheet for a class of students. The flow is triggered using the FileMaker script trigger. The trigger sends connect a list of students using a JSON array. The repeat step allows me to select and isolate the student list from the rest of the trigger context. By nesting the action inside of the repeat step, the action is provided a single item from the list. In this case, I'll add a new spreadsheet row for each student in the list. Once I've added it, it becomes simple for me to use Connect's Pill menu to map each item's information to the columns of my spreadsheet. The repeat step is a powerful tool in the hands of any Connect user. Adding it is simple, and it expands the capabilities beyond what we thought was previously possible. I'll finish up by just adding the email record, click Save, and then finally enable my flow. And as Ronnie pointed out, very quickly and easily, I've completed creating a flow. We also launched with an incredible on-premise agent. The on-premise agent allowed you to seamlessly and securely integrate an on-premise and firewalled MySQL or FileMaker server. To ensure the privacy and security of the on-premise systems, the agent required a manual file-based setup. After launch, we received critical feedback that the configuration file was difficult to set up, and that the file itself had some pretty strict requirements that could have been better explained with examples. We used this feedback to iterate on the feature, and now you can configure connections using the on-premise agent configuration wizard. The wizard now features an additional step which will allow you to choose and configure your sources. The wizard allows you to add as many sources as required and provides real-time connection validation to let you know if you've entered an incorrect value. To configure a connection source, you select the source type. Once selected, a source must be given a unique name. This name, alongside the agent's API key, is used to identify the appropriate agent and source. I'll really quickly use some demo magic to input some data and intentionally get the password wrong here. You'll notice at the top that Connect provides real-time error information on why we can't connect, in this case because of an invalid password. So real quickly, I'll switch the password back to the correct one, save, and the on-premise agent is automatically created. This makes it extremely straightforward to integrate even with an on-premise system. Let's transition now to a view just over the horizon. I'd like to dive into a few of the amazing new features currently in development. But before I do so, I must mention that we can't make a guarantee to when or if these features will be added to the platform. We also can't guarantee the order these features might be added. No purchasing decision should be made based on the following information. This being clear, I'm excited to show just a few of the incredible features we currently have in development. As you might have seen, we call the first feature code blocks. Code blocks are custom functions deployed in Connect's infrastructure. Code blocks provide a custom Node.js environment that allows advanced developers direct access to both the power of JavaScript and the NPM ecosystem. Code blocks are automatically deployed and monitored by Connect. Our automatic hosting of code blocks allow users to access and scale their custom code without the need to maintain additional infrastructure. Code blocks are also monitored for performance and automatically scaled based on demand. Further, we keep your most active code blocks ready for use at all times. This reduces or removes the warm-up delays you might experience with services like AWS Lambdas. Code blocks are designed to be invoked both within a flow or individually via a REST API. Finally, there's also no special application needed to create, build, and deploy code blocks. Authoring a block is done via the Connect's web-based IDE. The web IDE features automatic syntax highlighting, static code analysis for potential issues, and real-time log streaming. Let's take a look at a demo for code blocks. Code blocks are configured on the project level. In this project, you see I have 3 total code blocks. Let's take a look at the last code block in the list, the schema validation block. This code block uses AJV, an NPM module, to validate the schema of input passed to it. Each code block is required to export a function that accepts a context and a callback argument. Let's take a look then at the Lodash function. Here we can see excellent use of syntax-based highlighting. Since Lodash has quite a lot of functions and I can never remember them all, I'm very happy that the IDE offers automatic code analysis to highlight each function's requirements. Moving away from this code block, we can see Connect intelligently keeps track of the code blocks in use and warns us that we might be making an unwanted change. I'll go ahead and discard these changes, and we can move on to take a look at these code blocks in action in a flow. If I select an action, I get an inline preview of the code block. This allows me to easily see that this code block doesn't contain the correct logic for my flow. Let me switch to the correct one. Additionally, it's quite easy to add static content or use the content from a webhook trigger. Now that I've configured this flow, let's take a look at a new example that combines the power of IoT. In this case, I'm using a code block to filter the incoming data from my particle IoT device. I'll use the body from the webhook trigger, in this case, to create a record in my FileMaker database whenever the information matches. Finally, I can also use code blocks as triggers in a flow. In this case, I'm using my amazing code block to create a record in FileMaker anytime that code block is used. Code blocks are an amazing new feature that I can't wait for you to get your hands on. But we also have another feature. This feature is called FileMaker Event Triggers. FileMaker Event Triggers are built leveraging enhancements to the FileMaker Data API. The Data API has been extended to support a socket-based server for near real-time communication between services. We're calling this extension the Data API Notification Engine. The notification engine uses a socket-based protocol to deliver record-level events in almost real time. Access to the notification engine is secured via the Data API authentication system. This allows developers to control access using the familiar and secure FMREST privilege set. While the real-time capabilities of socket-based communication are exceptionally cool, we also wanted to ensure that integrations can be created efficiently at scale. The notification engine supports transitioning from socket-based communications into client-definable webhooks. After the notification engine has tested the webhooks for fitness and security, the socket session is closed and notifications are sent via secure HTTP requests. Further, once a session has been converted, Connect will actively monitor the conversion to ensure the ongoing health of the communication channel. To empower developers with the ability to focus notifications on relevant events, the engine provides session-based subscriptions focused on record create, update, and removal events. Additionally, the notification engine provides layout-based context for the selection of field and portal data. The layout acts as a contextual formatter for notification events. Similar to the Data API, field-level visibility is controlled based on the metadata of the layout. Finally, additional filtering is provided using the popular JSON schema standard. If enabled, the notification engine will compare the schema of a record at the time of an event to filter notifications based on field-level values. Using the open JSON schema standard allows clients a powerful way to filter notifications. Let's take a look at this amazing feature. You're going to want to pay attention to this. To start, let's take a look at a flow created to support enrolling a student in a demo class. This flow is triggered via the creation of a record in the student table. We can see from the trigger step that it's configured to use the context of the student admin layout. The flow will use the repeat step and an Outlook connector to create and send a welcome email for each student record it receives. Then, if the student has opted into the transportation program, we look up their street address via the Google Maps connector and send that information to our transport service using the PubNub's secure messaging capabilities. Okay, now that we have an understanding of the actions required when a student is enrolled, let's watch FileMaker and Connect automate the process. To start, I'll create a new student record using myself as an example. On the left-hand side here, I have a demo database, and I'll really quickly create a record in that database. This will allow us to take a look at the email sent from Connect. In just a few brief moments, the record information was sent to Connect, analyzed, and used to trigger our flow. This is very, very cool. There is more though. At Claris, we aren't content with the status quo. We want to deliver impactful features that significantly enhance our users' productivity and overall quality of life. So we went further. As you folks have heard, add-on functionality offers some inspiring opportunities for our developers. With this in mind, we built FileMaker event triggers to be add-on compatible. Let's leverage the power of event triggers and add-ons to add a notification widget to our file. Okay, this is fun. I'm very proud to showcase this to you all. Let's push the envelope a little bit. Let's take a look at a FileMaker script capable of testing out the resiliency of the notification engine and event triggers. This FileMaker script uses a JSON payload to simulate the creation of 10 students on the fly. After the students are created, we then loop through the records to advance their grade level. You know what? I'm sure that our small add-on can't do this test justice. Luckily, being add-on also means being capable of running in a modern browser. Event trigger clients can be created and connected to FileMaker server automatically. When I trigger the script, you can see the burst of creations, updates, and removals are processed swiftly. Each of these events can execute a flow in Connect. I'm very excited to introduce this upcoming feature, and since this is an under the hood session, let's take an in-depth look at how Connect is able to offer the performance and scalability to ensure this functionality is possible. The Connect product is a unique new offering from Claris. Connect is designed from the ground up to be a continually integrated cloud product capable of impressive scaling and intelligent automation. Connect architecture is designed around containerized microservices. The Connect platform uses horizontal scaling to meet demand. Horizontal scaling means to add additional duplicate services to existing infrastructure to satisfy an increasing demand. Connect uses horizontally deployed microservices, which are automatically added to the platform based on the indicators we designate. As expected, we scale horizontally using indicators such as CPU, network traffic, and memory. We also scale based on factors unique to Connect. One of the best indicators we use are the number of flow steps currently pending. All of Connect's monitoring and scaling is automated. This means that the platform is able to respond quickly without any human intervention to any bursts of demand. Our automation extends beyond scaling capabilities. Connect is also self-healing. The platform uses active monitoring probes to ensure that individual microservices are operating within our very narrow thresholds. At any time, if a service doesn't meet the thresholds, it is retired from service and a duplicate service is automatically deployed. To help visualize the mechanics of Connect scalability and performance, I'd like to show you what a scaling event looks like. To allow me to do this, let me first introduce what we will be looking at. To analyze our scaling event, we'll be looking at a Grafana graph, much like you see here, displaying data captured via Prometheus. Grafana allows us to explore the state of the infrastructure at any given time. Let's outline each important piece of information. First, you see we have the average worker CPU node, the average worker memory, and the worker network communication. Moving to the right, we have the number of flow engine workers. This is the duplicate services that I was just talking about earlier. Each flow engine worker is responsible for grabbing flows and flow steps from our queue and processing them. Finally, we have our flow step graph. This graph has two important pieces of information. One is the number of steps currently in process. The other is the number of steps currently waiting to be processed or pending. One thing to note here is that Connect actively monitors the number of flow steps pending and will scale up in order to handle even the largest burst of demand. Let's take a look at what this looks like by speeding up a 12-minute scale cycle to about 40 seconds. While this is scaling, notice that we're currently at 3 steps. Once there's a burst of information, we see that the flow engine workers in the top right corner have started to increase, scaling to the demand of our pending steps. Once that demand has been met and exceeded, you'll notice that the flow engine workers start to scale down to intelligently add the services only when it's required. Now that we've hit the peak of 7 and all the pending steps have been automatically resolved, we'll scale down and then the system will continue to operate as expected. Now that we've had a chance to go under the hood of Connect and see how Connect can scale, let's shift the perspective to what it's like to leverage Connect's incredible scaling capabilities from the client perspective. To provide that perspective, I'm very proud to introduce the venerable Wim de Kort. Take it away, Wim.
Thank you, Lou. My name is Wim de Kort, and at Soliant we have a big team of top-notch developers. We have about 30 of them, and we do a lot of integrations. And integrations is what Claris Connect is all about. So when Claris Connect was first introduced, I wanted to make sure that we got a good sense of its performance. We wanted to see how well it would hold up under load. And for that, I went back to an IoT setup that I have demonstrated a couple of Devcons ago. And what we have is a small device that is taking sensor data. That sensor data has to flow to FileMaker. It has to end up in FileMaker somehow. And it does it at a very rapid clip, right? We're looking at taking at least 2 sensor readings every second. So this is how I envision that it's all laid out. I have my device. My device sits in Toronto. My device talks to Claris Connect. Claris Connect will talk to my FileMaker server. It will create a record in FileMaker. It would also run a script. After creating a record, it will run a script to do some post-processing on the data that was pushed to FileMaker. And my FileMaker user can really be anywhere. Now, I want to call out how geographically spread out this layout is. My device sits in Toronto. Claris Connect, when I was testing this, was in the US West. So we're dragging this data all across the continent. My FileMaker server was also on AWS, and it was in the US East region. So Claris Connect has to communicate back across the continent to my FileMaker server, and my user really can be anywhere. Now, in Claris Connect, what we have is a fairly simple flow. The trigger for the flow is a webhook, and webhooks are incredibly powerful. It's a very, very useful tool in the Connect toolset, and I have an on-demand video that talks about nothing but webhooks. But the webhook is basically the address that my device will send the data to. Now, step number 2, that's basically just there so that I can take a time measurement at the Claris Connect level to see when that happened, so that I can basically do an offset between that and when my device took its sensor data. Step number 3 is Connect pushing the data to a FileMaker, creating a record in my FileMaker database. And step 4 is Claris Connect running a script in my FileMaker database. So that's how it looks like on the device. Sorry, and in Connect. On the device, we have a simple bit of Python code that is what drives the sensor reading. So that's what we see on line number 14. What we have there is that the device will take sensor data, send it to Connect, wait for only a quarter of a second, and then do the whole process again. Take the next reading and send that over to Claris Connect. When we let that all run, what we see, and we see two lines in that graph here. The bottom line is the time measured between when the device registers, takes its sensor data, right? It takes a date and timestamp when that happens. And the bottom line is the time difference between that event happening on the device and the response from Claris Connect. And as you can see on the scale on the left-hand side there, we're talking about microseconds, and we see that we consistently get a response from Claris Connect in about 200 to 300 milliseconds. Remember, this is sending the data from Toronto all the way to the West Coast. So given the latency inherent to the distance, that is fairly impressive. The top line is actually the total time it takes to complete the flow. Take the measurement, send it to connect to FileMaker server to create a record, and then connect, talking to FileMaker server to run my script. And you can see that consistently clocks in as just over a second. Now, you may think that with that, if it takes over a second to complete the whole flow, we're not going to get the desired outcome of creating multiple records per second in my FileMaker database, being able to take multiple sensor readings per second. Well, that's not entirely true, and that speaks to what Lou was saying about the scalability of Claris Connect. If we go look in FileMaker, you'll see that's how the record ends up when we send it over. On the bottom right-hand side, we see the measurement data, but we want to zoom in on what we have on the top right in that FileMaker layout there. And what we have there is a complete breakdown of all the steps along the way and when those happened, right? So the first timestamp comes from the device, that comes from the Python code. That's when the sensor data was taken. Step number 2 is basically already in the connect flow. That's that timestamp that we take in the connect flow. And you can see the time difference between the device taking its timestamp and connect reporting its timestamp is less than 0.2 of a second. Half a second later, connect has created a record in FileMaker. Less than a half second later, connect has run my script in my FileMaker database. And then it only takes 2 milliseconds to complete the script. So that's the breakdown for that, just over a second of that whole cycle, basically from the device all the way through the flow to my FileMaker database. But if we go and look, if we look at the record creation times in the FileMaker database, you will see that we actually do get 2 records per second created in FileMaker, even though that the total flow takes over a second to complete, mainly because of the distances involved. But we consistently get 2 records per second. And the way that works is really a testament to how Claris Connect intelligently manages the load, right? When my device speaks to Claris Connect and sends it the data, as soon as that first step that we have in the flow sends a response back to the device to say, I have received your data, that first step of the flow is already listening for the next thing to happen, even though the rest of the flow is still being executed. And that's how we can consistently send data over to Connect, and Connect is handling that load in parallel, in essence, right? So it doesn't wait for the flow to end before it can start on the next flow. If I keep an eye on my admin console when all of this happens, you can see some of the stuff that Lou had highlighted. You can see that in action, right? Claris Connect will spawn a new data API session on my FileMaker server to meet the demand of how frequently I push the data that I wish to push the data to my FileMaker server. And even under load, I saw no more than 2, perhaps 3 of those data API sessions. And that's really what Lou was saying about that scalability of Claris Connect. Like Claris Connect will intelligently manage those connections so that they happen exactly when they need to happen. And I have to say, we were very impressed with the performance of Claris Connect. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Wim. That's amazing to hear, and those are some great examples. I have to say, I'll speak for the rest of the engineering team and Claris as a whole, that this information is amazing and it really just helps to drive us forward. With that, Rosemary, I think it's time to open up for Q&A. What do you say?
Sounds good, Lou. And we have a bunch of questions that have come in. So first, an all-important security question. And the question is, does the new on-premise agent configuration require an SSL certificate for an on-premise server?
I'll go ahead and answer that. At this moment, it does. At this moment, the same requirements of the FileMaker data API hold true for the on-premise agent. So
Okay.
I've fully qualified SSL.
Okay, thanks. And next, there were a bunch of questions about individual connectors and what's on the connector roadmap. So rather than asking about everybody's favorite connector, I'm going to ask two questions. So one is, how can members of the Claris community suggest connectors they'd like us to publish?
Yes, so we definitely want to hear the connectors that you want us to build. As a matter of fact, a lot of the connectors we've built has been from feedback from you. And I'll say that our list of connectors to build is in the 3 digits. So we are very, we got a lot of them that we want to tackle. But please, we would like to hear from you. We've got a link on our website where you can, in the community, so you can submit and ask us which ones are you looking for. Or you can literally also talk directly with one of us. We want to hear, not only do we want to hear which connectors you want, but we want to hear the story. We want to hear the reason. What is it you're trying to do? What is it you're trying to accomplish? We want to stitch together the story because it makes a lot more sense for us, and we love to really give you the tools that you need to create those workflows. So please give us a feedback.
All right. And next question is, are there any exciting connectors on the horizon beyond the handful that Louis shared earlier?
Oh, dear Lord.
There are always exciting new connectors on the horizon. We're driven to add as many connectors as possible, so there will always be exciting connectors on the horizon.
And the other thing that we shouldn't forget is the webhook, which is a generic receiver. And it's incredibly powerful, right? That's why I used it in my demo here, and I'll use it in the. Your connector is not in there, but you want to push data to connect or through connect, look at webhooks.
Absolutely.
Okay. And a related question is, can you build your own connector, not using webhooks?
I will answer the first part of that, and I'll let Lou take. Currently, no, but we are working on it. As part of our roadmap, it is to give you the ability to create your own connector, to create custom connectors. So that is in the roadmap. We've said it before. We are committed to delivering that. It takes time, though. There's a lot of technical hurdles that we have to overcome, and things we want to make sure that we deliver the best experience to you. That's really paramount for us. So just rest assured, we are working hard on it, really, really hard, and to deliver just really the best experience for you when that comes out. I don't know, Lou, if you want to add anything to that.
I think you answered that question beautifully. I think you're exactly right. As I mentioned, at least within my presentation, that we're out to really empower users, and that empowerment means giving you the ability to create these connectors. So it's absolutely something that's coming, but we want to make sure we do it in the right way and that it's scalable, as you've seen today. So we'll take a little bit of time and do it right.
Sounds good. This next question is for Guy. And this is a sort of general question to know, how long did it take you to build your new website integration using Claris Connect?
Honestly, I think I'd phoned Natasha Hudson up in Stockley Park to get the license up and running, and we had it up and running in a couple of hours. So it was that quick.
Wow,
so,
that's impressive. And what about the MDM solution?
I did that first because that was my biggest problem. But I mean, it was such a simple thing to do from my, because we had the groundwork in place. Getting that MDM server replaced was the urgency, and it was literally probably a 10-minute integration.
Wow. That
That doesn't take all the sleepless nights of panicking. But, you know, it was actually very easy to do once we had the tools to do it.
That's awesome.
When you start describing integrations in minutes, the game really changes.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer for me, Connect. So I jumped on board as soon as I could.
So happy to hear that.
Next is, are there any limitations when using Claris Connect?
Who's up?
I don't know. Anybody?
I mean, honestly, we've seen performance-wise, right? There really is very little, if anything, that it could really handle. Pretty much everything can throw at and whim through the kitchen sink at it. And I think with code blocks, whatever limitations you could have conceived, I think go out the door. You know, I'll let Lou and Wim talk about that, but code blocks really kind of peels up a completely deeper level of customization out there. So really the sky's the limit once we get code blocks in there. But as of right now, it is extremely powerful. And I think things that Guy and Wim have done kind of show that already.
It's one less server to manage, and the scalability is brilliant. So.
Exactly. I think trying to build your own scalability in this fashion would be prohibitively expensive. I think most limitations would be perceived limitations more than real ones, right? I can totally see where somebody would look at the list of connectors and say, what I'm trying to do isn't in there. And that's what code blocks will be for. And that's what webhooks can deliver. I think, yeah, it's hard pressed to find any real examples of something that you would want to do that you couldn't.
Definitely.
Okay. Couple questions on event triggers. Lots of excitement both from your demo and from the earlier keynote this morning. Will those event triggers be available to any third-party app via the data API?
Oh, yes. So, I'll start up. I don't know, Lou, you want to talk about that, but yeah, one of the most exciting things about it is it really is about the FileMaker data API more than anything else. Claris Connect, we just happen to really have a good use for it, right? We implemented something that's really good in it, and it's to make the integration between FileMaker and Connect as best as possible. But it really is open to just about anything. It's regular HTTP requests that come out of it. So, and I can see some really great use cases, very interesting use cases for it going beyond this. And Lou has already been playing around with some of those things. Lou, you want to talk a little bit about more of that?
Sure. Well, I'll say from an engineering perspective, we design event triggers to work across the platform. That means with Connect, that means with FileMaker Server, and even in a lot of cases with FileMaker Pro, which hopefully my demo showed. So really, to get that power and to get the use out of it, it needs to be open to every client, so to speak. The feature isn't fully developed yet, and it isn't delivered. So obviously, things can change between what you saw and what actually goes to market. But it looks like a very powerful way for anyone to leverage the FileMaker platform. Right? It just so happens to be that Connect is the best way to leverage this power. Right.
Hold on, there's like as I'm looking, I was on another question panel and a bunch more questions have come in. So this is a general question, I think, for either Ronnie or Lou. Are Connect calls exempt from the data API limit if they're connecting to FileMaker?
Lou, you want to get the technical answer to that?
So the technical answer, at least as I understand it right now, is no. They are counted in your API limit. That can change in the future, but at the moment it is counted as part of your API limit.
And to expand on that a little bit, in the demo that I did, obviously the metering is only for asking data out of FileMaker, right? In my example, there would be no metering whatsoever. I'm just pushing data into FileMaker, which is free.
Correct. Very good point. Yes, absolutely.
That's exactly right, and that follows the tenets of the data API pretty closely, right? It's only the data that's coming out of FileMaker that gets counted.
So one question, and I think this is a great one. One thing that isn't showing up in anybody's flow example demos was error trapping. Is there a way in Claris Connect to capture the errors returned from the various connectors when there are problems?
We didn't have error captures in any of our flows today. My God, we need better demos.
Agreed.
Yeah.
To be fair, we tend to stray away from the error capturing only because it puts a giant X within the flow, and that's not always necessarily the best demo. But there is error capturing within Connect Flow. In fact, you might have heard me mention it using the repeat step, because the repeat step uses it very, very well. You can actually take a look at the data as you're iterating through a list, and then decide to take an action or stop the flow during that iteration. The one thing that I'll actually call out that's a really cool use of error capturing and what we call flow control logic is triggering another flow when an error occurs. This is something that I found myself using quite often. I'll have a flow and I'll say like, okay, I want to create a record in FileMaker if that record doesn't already exist. And one of the great ways to do that is to create a record in FileMaker, catch the error if something were to go wrong, and then trigger a completely different flow to clean up. This allows you to have kind of asynchronous communication and asynchronous trapping of errors as well.
One thing I'll mention also, trapping in Claris Connect, is that it takes away from you having to read and understand what are the different error codes for individual APIs, right? We take care of that. The connectors know, they report the errors in because that's built in over there. There are APIs that report errors completely different from one another, right? They're all REST APIs, but they all implemented in a different way, where there's APIs where the error response back is, it'll still send a 200 HTTP response back, but it'll say error inside of the body. Connect knows that, and it knows it's an error, so it'll capture that and execute the correct step depending on that. So you don't have to worry about how the API reports the errors. Claris Connect takes care of that, which is really awesome.
Yeah, I'll also just really quickly before we move on, add one final point, and that's that within Connect, it's actually really hard to get an error for that reason, which might be a reason why we don't show it very often.
So next, this is a very specific FileMaker question. Are there any specific server admin triggers? Thinking, it would be great to be able to build some Claris Connect integration for FileMaker server admin.
I
would certainly +1 that. I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah. I like that. Yep. Let's pass it along too.
All right. Consider it passed, right?
Yes. Next Engage, we'll be showing demos of that.
All right. I think there's a question here for Wim. Can you give just a few details of your Raspberry Pi setup?
Sure, and the code is actually on GitHub. I'll release it after the session so that people can play with it. It's actually exceedingly simple. It's a Raspberry Pi 3, so it's not even a very recent one, and it has a sense hat. That's the little device that you plug onto the Raspberry Pi that is responsible for the sensor. It has the sensors in essence, right? In addition to the sensors, it has little lights on it. And I use that for visual feedback, right? So there's a little green light that walks whenever time it takes a measurement, and a blue light when it goes into error mode. So visually, the people that are looking at these devices can see what's going on. And then the Python code is straightforward. I think it's less than 60 lines of code. It's basically just a loop, send the data off to Claris Connect, wait for response, interpret the response, and move on. So I'll release the code on GitHub after the session.
I think like a quick follow-up to that, and this is more general, does code blocks allow some versioning using Git or Mercurial or another code repository?
So I'll attempt to answer that as best as I can. Code blocks are version controlled. They are version controlled within Connect. We haven't fully realized what that virtual control will look like, but it will be internal.
Okay. And a question about the, go ahead, Ronnie.
No, there's a question here that I wanted to just, but go ahead, ask.
I was going to ask about the repeat step. So within a repeat step, can you call another flow so that you could process more than 1,500 items?
In fact, you can, and that's actually how I did the scaling demo. I have one webhook that triggers a repeat step, and that repeat step triggers another webhook, and on and on and on. And this, we're able to get thousands of requests within a very short amount of time.
All right. Was that the one you wanted to answer, Ronnie?
No. Somebody was asking if Claris Connect will integrate with FileMaker Cloud, and I just wanted to make sure that unless it has not been cleared, it already is. Like, we have the best FileMaker connector, hands down, best integration with an automated workflow platform out there. So we have both connectors for FileMaker Server and FileMaker Cloud. So it's there today. Play with it.
Yeah, I think the question was about Claris Next Gen, which was previewed in the keynote.
Absolutely.
All right, and I'm just going to answer this last session as we wrap up. And the question is, when and where will this session be available as video for review? And with all of the sessions from yesterday and today, we are publishing them to the Claris Academy. There's a thread under the Claris Engage topic that tells you when each session is published. And I just want to promote our team. We've already published all the live sessions from yesterday to Claris Academy. So I expect this one will be up either a little bit later today or at the very, very least sometime tomorrow morning. And I just want to, again, extend a huge thank you to Lou, Ronnie, Guy, and Wim for joining us and giving us this look under the hood at Claris Connect. And just give you a few previews for what's coming up next today. So first, coming up at 11:30 Pacific on not the main WebEx session number, but on a separate one. So if you don't have that and are interested, you'll need to go register for that session. So you want to be a Claris partner, presented by Mia Roop. And starting then at noon Pacific time is a discussion of businesses built on Claris, CXO perspectives. And that will be a panel led by Bob Bowers, talking to several of his longtime customers. And that's a session that I personally have been really excited about ever since Bob proposed it way back in January. And then one last reminder is please do stick around and join us at 4 Pacific time today for our very exciting closing session. It's when we're going to give our annual awards and, as usual, give you a sneak peek into where we'll be going for Claris Engage in 2021. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you later today.